20 minutes after 2 ngolomuhle ngiyade ukuthi labanye bayadibuta ukuthi engabe kwendakalani. It's a special broadcast brought to you by Eswatini TV. Sifuna kubuka lapha eParliament kunemsebenzi lo tawuqala nje masinyane lo savele uqalile empeleni sifuna ukuchacha with our senior journalist LinkedIn Gule. We want to give you an overview of today's parliamentary sitting, which is not the normal one. Today we're expecting the premier of the country, Russell Miso Dlamini, who is our Prime Minister, to make a pronouncement there. We don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be a government policy statement. Now, Makobane, we do not want to preempt what the Prime Minister is going to pronounce today, but there's quite a lot of issues of national importance right now. Would you be bold enough to maybe guess what he's going to pronounce today?
Probably I cannot guess. The Tavanga and Nangulo, Yini Lafna, Taubika, Maswatin Panjelo, Kulu, Lucy, Joba, say very late in India by school, Kuota Pepang, you invade Talek and Deganam, would say in Nangula to a police statement. You are complaining the Timbilla, says the bonnet into that tembo set for the ministerial statements, but update a parliament and leave it saying, Miss Bendaga Matigo Abo Yambaranjan, and I'm Prime Minister, Utabet a government position on a certain subject.
Yeah, I think we should just do that exactly. Salosi velesi posa konatin sambo e parliament sive kutse ngabe mvunankulu ufuna kusatisana sive semaswati.
Sibonge Mr. Clerk, umhlonishwa Ndunangulu. Usevele indlu ikulungele Nkosi kokulalela usakhulumisa inkulumo lebalulekile yahulumende. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker and honorable members of Parliament, it is both an honor and a privilege to deliver this government's policy statement today. I do so fully aware that this policy statement has been long anticipated. The policy statement that I'm delivering to this House today is an outcome of a clearly thought out agenda for this government through an extensive consultation process. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, His Majesty King Mswati III, during the opening of the 12th Parliament, gave a clear policy direction necessary for the country to attain a developed country status by 2030. This was also prayed for by Eswatini during their submissions at the Sibaya People's Parliament. As the new administration of His Majesty's government, we will rigorously pursue the vision of Eswatini to move from a lower middle income country to attaining high income country classification, while pursuing a broad-based sustainable development agenda. The government will focus on a few priorities through a sustainable and integrated approach. His Majesty's government is committed to pursuing an economic transformation strategy focused on fostering sustainable economic growth, eradicating poverty, strengthening our health system, and ensuring transparency and accountability in governance. We have charted a policy framework to create and support an environment that will attract mega investment, promote innovation, and foster exponential economic growth with the intention to transform our nation into a thriving, prosperous, and equitable society where every citizen has access to economic opportunities and quality healthcare. The country faces surmountable challenges, most of which were clearly elaborated during Sibaya, including but not limited to unemployment, poverty, domestic violence, and a poor performing health sector. There are severe headwinds and major downsides facing our beautiful and peaceful country. They have emerged in recent times and can only be addressed through a new way of thinking and approach. This policy statement proposes an ambitious pathway and disruptive modus operandi for the transformation of the entire economy of the Kingdom of Eswatini. And an agile, execution of the economic transformation strategy is paramount in attracting investment, ensuring progression enabled by a business-ready environment in Eswatini. It is a growth-oriented strategy anchored on investment in infrastructure development to stimulate exponential growth. Improvement in morality and integrity to root out corruption, and advancement in traditional and family values for nation building. Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that Eswatini and the government they elected chart their own path and take a focused approach, finding homegrown solutions with the interest of the country and its people at heart. A strategic approach must be adopted to optimize the limited budget without spreading it too thinly in order to achieve the desired impactful results. Progressive funding models will be formulated to enable government's transformation agenda. Mr. Speaker, the Kingdom of Eswatini is confronted with surmountable multiple crises on the backdrop of poor service delivery, estimated at 0.75 by the Public Service Delivery Index, and low economic growth, namely high rates of poverty at 58.9%, unemployment at approximately 35.4% as of 2023, deteriorating health service, gender-based violence, with approximately 1 in 3 females having experienced some form of sexual abuse by the age of 18 years, and 48% of women reporting to have experienced some form of sexual violence in their lifetime, being burgeoning corruption, devastating climate change impact, increasing inequality, deteriorating education system characterized by limited science, technology, and engineering and mathematics, and competencies, critical skills required by the labor market, declining national cohesion, diminishing national identity, and fiscal legroom to fund development programs. The state of these ills will worsen unless drastic measures are employed through comprehensive transformational sector strategies. Such strategies must tackle the root causes of the problems and outpace their rate of spread. In line with the National Development Strategy and Plan, the mission of the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini is to provide leadership and drive implementation of comprehensive strategies and programs aimed at transforming the economy and improving the lives of Emaswati. The need to inculcate a culture of excellence and patriotism reverberated throughout Sibaya submissions. Our plan for development and economic growth shall therefore be underpinned by a demonstration of patriotism and excellence. The need for an ambitious mindset and a change of worldview for ordinary Emaswati is also evident in our conversations and work culture. As such, this administration will remodel the public service in line with the culture of operational and execution excellence to ensure efficient service delivery. A culture of patriotism, excellence, and the mindset of thinking big will be embedded in government values and will be promoted across all sectors of the economy and society. This will take many forms, including through formal education, in-service training, and rigorous promotion following the development of curricula to cover these important aspects. The Kingdom of Eswatini shall pursue the principles of broad-based sustainable development to become a green economy. The much-needed development shall be derived without destroying the capacity of the environment to support future generations. This green policy shall be reflected in our pursuit of energy self-sufficiency and sustainable agriculture, including non-genetically modified organisms and chemical-free agriculture. Economic, social, and environmental sustainability will be embodied in government policy program and practice by ensuring that sustainability is a prerequisite for new projects and expansion programs. Financial sustainability shall be implemented through appropriate financing models and active participation of the private sector. Government shall strengthen and enforce corporate social responsibility and sustainability reporting frameworks in line with existing legislation. Mr. Speaker, the economic policy of the Kingdom of Eswatini is firmly informed by reliable data and strong aspirations of the people of Eswatini. It is a departure from conventional strategies. A progressive investment and industrialization policy framework targeting an average economic growth rate of 12% within the next 5 years shall be developed and implemented. This ambitious target will be achieved through a government-led long-term transformation agenda of the economy, promoting industrialization and supporting mega investments and growth in key sectors such as infrastructure, agriculture, manufacturing, and services. Government state-owned entities will play a critical role and will be strengthened and closely monitored to be actively involved in the execution of this economic policy. The overall policy agenda is designed to be export-oriented and catalyzed by active private sector participation to unlock foreign direct investment. Dedicated support for micro, small, and medium enterprises will contribute towards economic growth. Measures will be put in place in collaboration with the private sector to provide financial and non-financial assistance to MSMEs. The role played by innovation and technology in supporting small and large enterprises, and ultimately their contribution to the economy, will be harnessed. This will be encouraged and supported through establishment of the innovation and technology startup centers and continued support and strengthening of the special economic zones. Restrictions to economic growth and a business-ready environment will be continuously identified and eliminated. Key to this is change in policy and legislation to reflect government's ambitious agenda of harnessing foreign direct investment through a conducive business-ready environment. Government will no longer be a passive enabler of the business environment. Instead, government will be an active enabler, leading in developing viable business concepts, securing partnerships with global players, and innovative financing models. Government will deliberately and proactively invest to stimulate and grow the economy through infrastructure and establish a sovereign wealth fund through which to fund development and economic growth. Government recognizes the role of infrastructure development as a requisite for development and will continue its investment in infrastructure to stimulate growth of the economy to create jobs and bring the much-needed services to the public. This administration's infrastructure development plan is ambitious and reflective on the mindset of thinking big. With the majority of people predicted to live in cities, the future is urban, and it is critical that we build resilient and sustainable infrastructure in line with His Majesty's vision. Government will thus invest in built and bulk infrastructure. Government will identify and prioritize infrastructure for investment to stimulate the economy. Government will also endeavor to complete all outstanding projects and ensure that new projects are cost-effective, timelessly completed, and responsive to the needs of the people and the country. Partnerships will be sought for development of infrastructure characteristic of developed countries. Initial analysis prioritizes infrastructure on water development, electricity generation and distribution, referral hospital, road network, the new parliament building and campus, railway line extension, dry port, airport expansion, a new university of technology, vocational institutions, internet connectivity infrastructure, institutional housing, factory shells, national courts, and world-class sporting facilities. Eswatini's priority for climate change shall be to mitigate the impact of climate change through the strengthening and implementation of the National Adaptation Strategy, combined with the National Resilience Strategy. Notwithstanding our aspirations for exponential economic growth, government will continue to implement the nationally determined contributions NDC implementation plan for 2020 to 2030, aimed at enhancing climate action and meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement. This plan covers 12 national priorities, including agriculture, health, water, ecosystems and biodiversity, infrastructure, energy waste, industry, forestry, gender, youth, and disaster risk reduction. It is a result of a homegrown, stakeholder-driven process involving various ministries, development partners, UN agencies, public institutions, and civil society organizations. The NDC partnership with international organizations has provided and will continue providing significant support in developing and implementing the plan. The plan implementation evolution will be accessible online and will be revised continuously with inputs from all stakeholders to ensure progress and improvement. With this comprehensive approach, this administration will drive inclusive climate action and ensure that Eswatini contributes effectively to global efforts to limit global warming. Mr. Speaker, it is a commitment of this government to exercise appropriate fiscal discipline and budget strategies that demonstrate stewardship and effective use of the limited resources at our disposal. A borrowing plan oriented towards investment in economic growth and infrastructure shall be developed and implemented. Advanced planning, budgeting, monitoring, evaluation, and accountability will underpin our service delivery to the nation within the capacity of the resources entrusted to this administration. A pro-growth and pro-poor budget will be maintained in line with Sibaya submissions and the call to end poverty in Eswatini. Poverty was cited as one of the major crises faced by the country at Sibaya. We cannot win against poverty unless we focus our efforts on growing the economy to lift people out of poverty. To fight poverty, government will ensure economic policies are inclusive and that they address the needs of the poorest of citizens. Strategies will be developed to promote equitable distribution of resources and opportunities. Policies that foster wealth creation, which will create employment and more opportunities for citizens, thus reducing poverty. Wealth will be created at the national level and at the household level through establishment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, as well as through relevant agriculture and vocational education programs. Government will also directly invest to create jobs as well as to stimulate investment by the private sector. Of note is government's policy towards export-oriented production. Mr. Speaker, this administration's stance is that effective service delivery is linked to effective public service management and performance. The public sector will be modernized to improve service delivery as mandated by Sibaya. Modernization entails rationalizing and rearranging the public sector, ensuring optimal allocation of manpower, financial resources, and tools, rigorously building management capacity of civil service, professionalization, digitization, and reducing bureaucracy and inefficiencies within the government machinery. The Procurement Act of 2011 shall be comprehensively reviewed to ensure efficiency of service delivery by reducing the cost of services and commodities to government, reducing the period of the procurement process, and by introduction of digitization. A growing entitlement mentality, low productivity, and corruption within the country's labor force will be dealt with through proactive strategies and measures, such as complete rollout of the performance management system, review of government general orders, and building capacity of through various forms, including training on project management, monitoring and evaluation, as well as exposure to productive societies and advanced economies. The Eswatini Institute of Planning and Management, SIMPA, will be revamped and capacitated to train the public sector on leadership and governance, amongst others. The long-standing principles of Eswatini as a peace-loving country and without enemies, demonstrated by non-alignment and involvement in the affairs of other countries, will remain at the forefront of our international relations. The Vienna Convention on International Relations will be enforced, and the country's sovereignty will be proactively defended against all forms of encroachment. The country's position on the global agenda will be informed first by the interests of Eswatini and espoused by regional and Pan-African bodies, including SADC and the African Union. Government will promote and defend the country's Tinkundla governance system, Siswati values, and heritage that are so often unduly disparaged and under threat. Government will maintain diplomatic ties with friendly countries and establish new diplomatic relations with supportive and interested countries. The effectiveness of the country's foreign embassies shall be evaluated and renewed with a new and proactive impetus. Eswatini will review membership to international organizations based on the cost of the membership and the value they add to the country. The Nkundla governance system will be taught locally and promoted internationally as a democratic system of government, merging Eswatini traditional governance system with His Majesty the King as the head of state and the Western system of an elected parliament. The advantages of the system making use of Tinkundla as centers of representation equivalent to the county system of election will be promoted locally and globally. Tingundla will be optimally funded to attain grassroots development and livelihoods. New legislation will be enacted to strengthen local government and ensure decentralization and service delivery. To stimulate productivity, the Regional Development Fund and other empowerment funds will continue to be capitalized with the deliberate intention to improve efficiency and disbursements. A review of the guidelines to attract and increase entrance and chances of success is critical, as has been submitted in national forums. The country is endowed with natural resources such as minerals and favorable climatic conditions. The country seeks to become a green economy by pursuing renewable energy generation and supply through solar, geothermal, and hydropower. Approximately 190 megawatts is targeted to meet domestic household needs, while about 1,000 megawatts is targeted for industrialization. Clean energy will also be pursued through the supply of gas and friendly neighboring countries. Notwithstanding the preceding aspiration, Eswatini will urgently employ abundantly available resources to derive affordable baseload energy required for the industrialization of the country and for energy security. Mr. Speaker, education is indispensable for a prosperous future of Eswatini. So a comprehensive review of the education system from pre-primary to tertiary education will be undertaken to make it amongst the best in the region, as it once was. This review will ensure increased capacity for special education needs, both in terms of facilities and instruction. The review will also entail formulation of a plan for in-service teacher training for all government-employed teachers. Government will also strategize on how to ensure continuous and sustainable free access to education at primary and tertiary education. A thorough review of the model and finance structure of the education system and scholarship will be undertaken with the objective of improving effectiveness and efficiency. The University of Eswatini will be revitalized to meet market demands, as well as to attract the best minds for training and development. This will be through a review of academic programs offered by the university to be competitive in the region. The government will work towards establishment of a new University of Technology and Innovation, targeting enrollment from the SADC region as well as the entire Africa region. Government will not relent to produce more graduates, but will instead promote more relevant programs needed for the desired future, as well as for human capital export. The education curricula will be improved to reflect our African values and instill a winning mindset. The curricula of vocational institutions will be strengthened with business acumen, introduction of new programs relevant to local and regional industry, as well as through the construction of additional vocational institutions. Mr. Speaker, government will leverage the investment made in the health sector to ensure access to appropriate quality healthcare services. The Ministry of Health will be restructured for efficiency and effectiveness and to meet modern health demands of the nation. This will be through a review of the ministry mandate to focus on keeping the population healthy through disease prevention strategies, protection from global pandemics, strengthening disaster risk management and disease surveillance, as well as establishing a national health insurance. The country has made great strides in fighting HIV and AIDS, but it remains a serious threat to longevity and productivity in the country. At least 4,000 people, mostly young girls, are infected with HIV annually. This is a disheartening concern for the nation. The population shall be protected from being infected and acquiring HIV through rigorous strategies. NATURA's mandate shall be reviewed to include procurement of pharmaceuticals as well as non-communicable diseases. The central medical stores will be transformed to a semi-autonomous organization to improve its efficiency, accountability, and service to the nation. Government will prioritize the construction of a national referral hospital for highly specialized cases to reduce the cost of Palala Fund while increasing access to quality and advanced health services. The capacity of the National Health Council shall be strengthened through improved research and linkages with the CDC. Investment will be made to increase output of training of medical doctors and strengthen nurses training programs through partnerships with local and international tertiary institutions. The government is committed to establishing a framework to enable safe and productive export of skill to other countries that ensures maximum benefit of professional staff and their safety. Such a framework should include remittance, build a productive workforce that is focused and unmatched in the country through continuous training and promotion of a positive work culture. To enable this commitment, this administration would ensure access to scholarships for Eswatini. The efficiency of scholarship administration will be improved and innovative ways developed to ensure sustainability. Social grants remain a critical catalyst for creating coping mechanisms to the marginalized, the elderly, and vulnerable people of Eswatini. It is the commitment of this government to explore and strengthen social welfare and social security in a meaningful and sustainable manner. Government will enact legislation in support of social security for the elderly, persons with disabilities, and vulnerable populations, which will practically and significantly reduce abject poverty. With the increasing frequency and intensity of natural hazards that threaten life and livelihoods, damage to property, and in many instances leading to disasters, government will prioritize disaster risk management and strengthen its institutions and funding. It is crucial that a strong disaster risk management framework that will make Eswatini resilient to common hazards is enacted. Such a framework will constitute a disaster risk finance strategy, disaster risk management fund, resilience strategy, and a new law to govern disaster risk management in the country. Eswatini will become a center of excellence in disaster risk management and will have the capacity to respond to all calamities without heavily relying on external assistance. Mr. Speaker, corruption has become endemic in the country and has become an incipient culture among the elite and middle class. This pervasive cancer must be eradicated from the country. Corruption will be fought by ensuring that the public sector acts in the interest of the people and by promoting transparency and accountability. Corrupt individuals and activities will be exposed to dissuade the culture. The capacity of government institutions that have a role in fighting and eradicating corruption, such as the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Human Rights Commission, public prosecution, and the Royal Eswatini Police Service will be significantly strengthened. Government will promote the rule of law and strengthen the capacity of the police service to enforce the laws of the land. The population will be mobilized to understand the impact of corruption and to be part of the fight against corruption. It is paramount, Mr. Speaker, that as a people and as a country, the cultural identity of a Maswati is advanced and promoted more than that of foreign origins in all local institutions. These values include family values, spiritual values, respect, and the spirit of Buntu, amongst many others. The values will be advanced. These values will be advanced through the establishment of a council on national identity and family heritage, and through deliberate promotion of cultural values in schools and communities, and to set standards and requirements for all citizens of the country. Without a strong national identity, there can never be a strong nation and development. The Council will also work with the nation in fighting gender-based violence and other forms of violence that have become common in the country. Government has no doubt of the urgent need to strengthen the family institution and calls upon the church, faith-based organizations to support this important endeavor. Government will, through all its security forces, will continue to uphold the rule of law, to ensure national security, to maintain peace and public order. A new legislation on crime prevention will be enacted. Security forces will be capacitated to enforce the law through training and provision of adequate equipment needed for carrying out their function. All security forces will be trained to meet international standards associated with security, promotion of the rule of law, crowd control, and efficient service delivery. Security forces will be thoroughly equipped to suppress terrorism as per the Suppression of Terrorism Act, number 3 of 2008, prevent organized crime, as well as to fight sexual and domestic violence as per Act number 15 of 2018. The potential of agriculture will be harnessed to create wealth for the ordinary citizen and employ many of our unemployed youth as it did in the past. Agriculture will be repositioned as a profession that has high returns. This will be through large projects of commercialization, mechanization, and building strong market systems that offer attractive returns to individual farmers. We will ensure that our agriculture systems are adapted to climate change while fostering resilience and ensuring food security and sovereignty. Government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and state-owned entities, will be directly involved in agricultural production through projects making sure that all government farms are productive to attain food sovereignty, over and above providing a policy environment that promotes production by a Maswati. The agricultural extension policy will be reviewed in line with the new strategy developed by the Ministry of Agriculture. Government will develop strategies that will ensure sustainable production and consumption of healthy food. Government's policy framework on genetically modified organisms will be strengthened to ensure that Eswatini is organic and that Eswatini is a green economy. This administration, Mr. Speaker, recognizes the crucial role that Parliament plays in the country's development and economic growth. It remains our commitment to continue working with and recognizing the key functions of Parliament. Parliament's strategic plan, such as the 2022-2026 strategic plan, provide a clear guide on how to execute these functions effectively and efficiently in line with the country's constitution. Government will proactively support capacity building initiatives and efforts of Parliament, especially as it relates to carrying out their constitutional mandate. We will enable Parliament to fulfill its critical functions with a view to create a stable and predictable environment that is essential for economic growth and development. In line with the Constitution of the Kingdom of Eswatini, the Ngundla democratic system recognizes the independence of the judiciary in executing their function. It is of utmost importance that investors have confidence in the justice system for the country to attract mega foreign investment. Government will therefore work with the judiciary to ensure that the justice system is effective in delivering justice timely, and that confidence is restored to the justice system in the country. The judiciary will be supported to improve efficiency within the court system and by introducing electronic systems as well as capacity building of personnel. The capacity of operations of national courts will be supported in line with the laws of the land. Allow me to conclude, Mr. Speaker, that His Majesty's government has formulated a short-term to medium-term plan anchored on the Sibaya submission and the speech from the throne. This plan precedes the development of the country's long-term plan, the awaited Grand Plan. Embedded in the long-term plan will be the country's socio-economic development approach and the investment models that will be at the center of government's plans and operations and will transform both the economic and social outlook through investment attraction and job creation. A National Transformation Committee shall be established to fast-track national transformation of critical sectors and ensure that government policy is implemented. Within the next 5 years, and building on the work of our predecessors, government, the private sector, and all Eswatini will together work to transform our economy, create wealth and jobs for all, thus reducing poverty and the dominant ills, and build strong institutions that deliver quality service efficiently. This policy statement, Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, will not yield the intended outcomes without the support of the civil service, of members of Parliament, the private sector, and all Eswatini. I appeal, therefore, that we rally behind this policy for its implementation. I thank you.
Sibonge kakhulu mhlonishwa Ndunankulu, sibonge umsebenzi lose uwethulile Nkosi yeParlamente yaMaswati, wethule endaweni lefanele kuma stakeholders lafanele lamele interest yesive. Siyakholelwa ukuthi mhlonishwa nalawo siyajabula nekuva ukuthi nema input eMaswatini ayawuchubeka athathwe nisachubeka nalo mgwaqo lobe uwethula. Sikholwa ukuthi nebahlonishwa nabo ngalokunjalo Nkosi siseyibongile inkulumo yakho badalithola lithuba abahlonishwa lekuthi kube khona laba kubudako mhlonishwa Ndunankulu, kepha ke ma standing orders ethu vele athi siyawulithola ngalelinye ilanga lokusho ukuthi namhlanje bahlonishwa batayithatha lenkulumo bayifunze bayi-understande bathole lokho labafunayo ama-clarities kuko bese-ke elangeni inkosi Lester uphenze sikunikete lona sebayalithola-ke lithuba abahlonishwa bayakubuda la bangakacacelwa kahle khona nawe-ke so uyakhanyisa for the benefit of emaswati nabo bahlonishwa bayawube benda lowo msebenzi loyo sasibonga kakhulu mhlonishwa kuwe necabinet yonke nje kukhuluma nekunika umgwaco livele kungathi bese livele liwulambele kukuva ukubeka esiveni nekuthi nje inkosi ukubeka enzaweni lefanele njengoba ngisho eParliament nako lokho sithi asikuduse your excellency noma sekungathuka ke kuchubeka ke kunakulamanye ama platforms kepha nje iParliament lena lekhona kubambisana nalo live kubambisana nayo iexecutive kubambisana nawo wonke intuthuko lethenza live laseSwatini sekuyawuba kuthandaza nje ukuthi uNkulunkulu akwende kube impumelelo iBhayibheli ke lithi with God nothing is impossible so sikholwa ukuthi lokho lesenikubekile kutawukwendeka sive saseSwatini sijabule Madam Clerk mhlawumbe ncesi clerk ngaba kuveta nje bahlonishwa ukuthi ulive vele lo msebenzi wanamuhla mhlawumbe just for your information nje ukuthi akusithi sodwa lesilalele endvunankulu nalamanye amaswati nakuletinye indzawo ayakhona kuva nekulandzela ukuthi umsebenzi uqhubeka kanjani eParliament today Madam Clerk.
Honourable members, the next item in the order paper is tabling of a bill. This is the disaster.
Ngasikanqane Madam Clerk mhlonishwa ukuyini
Sibonge Speaker so shido Speaker ukuthi ukukhulumisa lenkulumo yandvunankulu kwende ngalinye ilanga sengabacela nje Speaker ukuthi singaka kwendi lokho sale sithwala umbhukuthu lohambisana lenkulumo lethu lengvunankulu ngoba abendvulela lokuthi nayi le plan bekungaba kuhle ukuthi siengage lenkulumo sesibukena nalombhukuthu sto engage productively siyabonga Speaker.
Asibonge mhlonishwa wase ukwini cha kuyevakala mhlonishwa nale nkulumo yemhlonishwa ndvunankulu bahlonishwa ndayithola even electronically lokuthi nje bahlonishwa bakhona kuyilandzela yonke ngalokuphelele bese ke bakhona kuthola lithuba ngalelo langa lesitawuli statisa iParliament bese siyayisebenta kanye kanye Madam Clerk.
Honourable members, the next item in the order paper is tabling of a bill. This is the Disaster Risk Management Bill 2024, Bill number 6 of 2024. This bill is tabled by the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Umhlonishwa liphini landvunankulu.
Mr. Speaker, nendlu yonke ihloniphekile. Ngiyakuhlonipha lokukhulu Mr. Speaker. Ngicela kubeka kule tafula leli lehloniphekile pheceleti the Disaster Risk Management Bill. Umthetho lokhankwasako wa 2024 abeyena number 6 wakhe 2024. Ngivumele Mr. Speaker ngubeke etafuleni lehloniphekile.
Akachubeke umhlonishwa liphini landvunankulu.
Nevenkosi sicatsa kulalela ndvunankhulu we-Live presenting what he himself called a bold and ambitious statement. It targeted a lot of areas: climate resilience, economic expansion, Vision 2030. All of these that I am fortunate enough in studio to have LinkedIn Gula, our decorated senior journalist with 13 years of experience now, who's going to help us ventilate some of these salient points by the Right Honourable Prime Minister. Russell Miso Dlamini. LinkedIn, I think a lot on the agenda. I think, particularly for me, I think it's notable in Zaba education, like Degile, in terms of the reform being a cornerstone of this agenda, a comprehensive review set to make Eswatini's education system, be the best in the region once again. And I like the fact that he did reclaim the fact that we have been the best before, but there's a clear focus on improving special education. With your 13 years of experience, how do you chime into this particular point?
It's a great speech, great plan. Njoba uchaza ukuthi sinze tonke tingoni lokujabulisa ngalo ukuthi ngala kule education vele they've swiftly responded lokho raiswa ngemaswati esibayeni uyakhumbula nje ukuthi minister education akusikutsala cetha kubeka libandla letawuhlala phansi libuke le structure sale education yethu ukuthi ngabe vele kusesengiko yini ukukhuluma ukuthi one of the best in the region yasikhumbula isikhathi the boleswa countries bese lihlahlandlela lapho kuleso sigaba leso. But I do believe with the support of the private sector and all players involved njoba
You mentioned that.
Yes, sitakhona mhlambe ku achieve le plan and the strengthening of the vocational yes ukuthi uyachaza ukuthi batawakha lama vocational centers. I think nathi uyawubuka umhlaba nalamanye amavela athuthukile, that's the route they're taking now.
Especially now that we are confronted by a high unemployment rate, particularly considering our demographic dividend as well. But particularly Kela Lamatfuba M7. The structural overhaul of scholarship and financing models to enhance efficiency. And I suppose we will chime into what was announced recently with 1,000 more scholarships. We do see Lama Konso, let's how do you react to this? I think it's very critical because in order for us to even sit here, we went through university and some of us had to, depend on scholarships, which makes it even more relatable. How critical is this development?
Imtoba sifisa kuba ukuthi kube nesikhathi la uhulumende achaza khona ukuthenini probably akusinje ukuthi ngomfundzate lo uhulumende yakuboleka le mali kufanele nawe uyilethe itoqhubeka lokuthi ifundela abanye. But what is critical now for me ngilo ukuthi akubukakale phela lo ukuthi sengimaphi ama programs le level le economy le level le wadzingako kuze ukuthi ke mhlambe labo bantu laba bakhole ukuthola ifunding. We had a conversation with Minister Education ukuthi ngabe nababuka bona kusasisita yini lo ukuthi sichubeke sikhiti. I'm not saying abangakhikitwa boshela bayofundisa Swati and English, history and RK, but le economy yethu ngilo ine lexingako nyalo nangabe sitakhuluma ukuthi kunathishela lo cece nga 2012 2014 lo solo angakacashwa but ngala nasolo siyabafaka in the job market sisebenzela yilo uthi ke ndinankulu bataphinze bakhe nesikolo se technology yakwenza ukuthi that's why we need
very
to
critical.
nabo la batawuthi ngalawo ma scholarships lawo Swiss.
By the way, I just want to remind our viewers that LinkedIn here is also the broadcast presenter of our current affairs program called Asake Gwet. And you want to realize that as the Right Honorable Prime Minister was making those pronouncements, it literally touched on all the 21 portfolio committees list now. You could also call that all the ministries that we have Silive Larangwane. So we do appreciate all the insights that is going to provide here. You've sat with most of the ministers, LinkedIn, and perhaps Isangena Guye Vision 2030, which was probably the first thing that he mentioned in Zaba, a transition from a low-income country into a high-income status by 2030. It's a bold and ambitious thing to even think about. But do you believe that our government has laid, say, the necessary groundwork to achieve this monumental shift?
So letnyendela titsinza ko ndinangulu singasho ukuthi we've heard them before. Uyakuveta namuhla angibekise kwakhiwa kwe referral hospital. I think kusukela ku 8 parliament conversation lebesole ikhona le but lese ku king lo ukuthi how then do we get there ukuthi se implement lokho lenkabami ukuthi we've had great plans before in this country labanye bondu nangulu, but the implementation part of things nayo lefike ya emaswati yawashiya mhlamba nesilonzi lekuyasijabulisa ukuthi ndunangulu ne cabinet yakhe live nje lonke the private sector kubanjiswane ukuthi nangulo mgwaqo sibawuleyile sale sisebenza ke kule mgwaqo lese njoba ngisho nje ukuthi isibedlela lesikhulu referral hospital kathi imaswati ayilangatelela le
sisasebenza kulomgwaqo LinkedIn. I loved the fact that sisakhuluma about getting back into sustainable path in terms of our economic growth, or rather say our economic recovery. He did boldly mention that we have a target this time around. It's the 12% average economic growth over the next 5 years. A staggering figure, considering the fact that he also admitted in Zabayagwe we have a tight budget, but we have big ambitions, and therefore we have to be very, very keen, as well as, proactive in making sure that we achieve all these things. What immediate steps can we expect to see to drive this kind of growth that we need? 12%.
They need to open up and strengthen the manufacturing sector, the agriculture sector, the services sector. And as you abuka the services sector, ugewaba se Bali Prime Minister akachaza khona ukuthi the investment lesendiwe nguhulumende in the services sector alendele live ukuthi na ubuka la kule region yethu. I think sinayo le workforce lengakhona mhlambe ukuthi nakuvuleka lawo mathuba emisebenzi maswati afunzile khona lokuthi asebenze manje kuze sithole le growth le ngicabanga sila ma sectors lawa lesicabanga ukuthi are key for us, the energy sector, even the mining sector. If nabe kuyavuleka lapho sifisa mhlambe kube nalawo ma investments iqhamuke bahlanyela imali bakhona kuhlanyela imali kulawo ma sectors lawo. Khuluma nje nankulu ukuthi foreign policy yethu le bataphinze babuke ukuthi ngabe lokuthi sibe ngamalunga lamanye ama bodies kuyasebenzela yini. Yakhanza ukuthi leyo foreign policy will also speak to attracting the FDI that we so much need in this country.
And certainly something that you were humble there to say Prime Minister was in Bali recently. You were there with him. In fact, we were speaking to you while you were there with him. And the first thing that he said when he landed La Paikaya, I remember that story was covered by Temgos Mavimbela, was that we will see the fruits. The FDI, the foreign direct investment, is coming here. He didn't want to talk much about his visit, but he said you're going to see the fruits really, really soon. But seeing those fruits, what is going to be key is sustainability. But now we have this dilemma because we want to industrialize, and yet we are speaking a green economy, and we said we're going to have a green economy policy. That's what he said. How do we make that balance, particularly because a key theme was, agriculture, and we know how critical is it for government to follow through on its promise of sustainability but find that balance?
Nangulu bahleti bekalapha ke UN House not so long ago. Bana mhlabhlangene and other UN agencies. Achaza ukuthi lobudlelwane kubambisana kwelive namhlabhlangene kule past 5 years sekuya ngasekuphele ngoba ngasekusele umnyaka. Bawakhakenya lo plan lelisha sesithabambisana nje. Usinza ke lenza ba energy. Uthi in as much as sifuna ukukhicita gas longanyuka ubeti imvelo using solar and everything. But sinayo resource lesinayo, the hydropower. Angeke bese sesiyekela hydropower ngoba kumcuba kusibe energy sufficient as a kingdom. Now siyabuka sinawo nemalahle sithola njani le technology kusisebenzisela amalahle ethu but angayinyuka ubeti lemvelo, because what is happening in even bomakhelwane in South Africa now, they've got coal, abundance of coal. Kuthiwa emhlabeni akangasebenzi lamalahle, but tons and tons of coal ayaphuma eAfrica ayingishiya kwetilwandle akukhicita gas. So Prime Minister, we are going to strengthen the energy sector, security gas using hydropower, solar, but finding the right technologies. And I do believe the projects are sustainable because we also invest in infrastructure projects, cost effective, aphele timelessly. Kungathiwa i-project itawuthatha 5 years igcine sethe 20 years.
And I suppose that is what has to be unique about this 12th Parliament, because, like you have rightly said, from the 8th Parliament, some of these pronouncements have been there. But this time around, the clarion call, our budget doesn't really speak to that, but we do have the ambitions, and we have, ministers that have been elected with merit, and we do expect them to make those changes, LinkedIn, do we not?
I do believe, Fiscal, but the most critical part for this government would say balance in corruption, because the economy ifike to its knees because of corruption. Yes, we do say because they've strengthened the agencies, the corruption, but strengthening those agencies, it is something else, and allowing the agencies to work and arrest people, it is also another story.
Well, a lot of issues we want to discuss with LinkedIn, but Eswatini TV has a host of other programs that I am pretty sure will take it incumbent upon them to make sure that they decipher, ventilate, and decode a lot of these pronouncements by our Right Honourable His Excellency Prime Minister Russell Miso Dlamini. State-owned enterprises should be efficient. Gender-based violence growing at a frightening pace. Nanayo, nayo, poverty and unemployment. Very important as well. Thank you for staying with us. Stay tuned for other programs, I'm sure, where these issues will further be discussed on our other programs. Thank you for staying with us. We're done. Bye.
Uyezwana. Lalela ngikutshele tindzaba letiphuma enkosini. Uthi okandaba, tintfombi imbali yemaswati ayiphelele esigodlweni embangweni mhla tingemashumi enyangeni yeNyoni. Titawufike tibhalise ngalelo langa. Tite nemhlanga wato. Kucitsa nekugidza. Tiyacitsa umhlanga mhla tingemashumi enyonini. Tiyagidza mhla tingemashumi kuyo inyoni. Umyalo etikhulwini. Nguleso naleso sikhulu kufanele sikhiphe bomake lababili nemajaha lamane kutsi bachube tintfombi kute kutsi nangabe kukhona kungaphili kwalomunye webantfwana. Mabili emajaha abe nekubikela labo labafanele, nekutsi babikele batali noma lomntfwana asafakwe esibhedlela. Boba betikhulu, bantfwa benkhosi lababuke imimango, kubhekekile baya letintfombi, bomake, nalawo majaha lahamba nato uma tiphuma emphakatsini. Nawo lamajaha ayati kutsi tintfombi tilala todvwa nalabadvuna balala bodvwa. Siyimbali yemaswati, sichakazile siyincobile iCOVID. Usho njalo mlomo longacalimanga, lomagadlagadla kaSobhuza, icathazi lamahogoza. Usho njalo mabhulumlilo ngelibhayibheli. Wena waphuma embo. Wethe! Wethe! Wena phakathi. Lo khipha simemetelo, inkosatana yembali, Sakhizo.